Well now, isn't it just remarkable how we humans operate? You gather any two or more people together, anywhere in the world, whether it's here in a bustling city like Cebu, or in a quiet boardroom, or even around a family dinner table, and almost immediately something fascinating begins to unfold. It's an invisible dance, a subtle interplay of wills, ideas, and influence. We're talking about power dynamics, understanding its manifestations in society. Now, power dynamics, that might sound like a fancy term for the sociologists or the political scientists, but I've always believed that the most profound truths are usually the simplest ones, the ones we can see playing out right before our eyes, if only we learn how to look. Understanding power dynamics isn't about getting a PhD. It's about getting a clearer picture of how life works, how decisions get made, how influence ebbs and flows like the tides. It's like learning to read the currents beneath the surface of the ocean. They are there, shaping the journey of every vessel, whether we're aware of them or not. Have you ever walked into a room, perhaps a meeting or a social gathering, and even before anyone said much, you could almost feel who held the influence? Maybe it wasn't the person with the official title or the one talking the loudest, but there was something in the air, a certain deference shown, a particular way attention gravitated. That, my friends, is a little glimpse into the world of power dynamics. It's the unseen script that often guides our interactions. So, what are these power dynamics we speak of? At its heart, it's about relationships. Power rarely exists in a vacuum. It's relational. It's about how influence is distributed and exercised between people, between groups, within organizations, and across societies. It involves a constant, often unspoken negotiation. Who defers to whom? Whose ideas are given weight? Who sets the direction? It's not always a conscious, deliberate chess game, but there's always a give and take, a push and pull. And like a dance, it's not static, it's constantly shifting, responding to new steps, new players, new tunes. The fascinating part is learning to recognize its manifestations. How does power actually show itself in our society? Where do we see these dynamics at play? Well, once you start looking, you see them everywhere. Consider our communication. This is a big one. In any conversation, who does most of the talking? Who tends to listen more? Who can interrupt whom without consequence? Whose suggestions get picked up and explored, and whose seem to just fade away? It's not just the words, either. Think about the nonverbal cues, the confident posture versus the hesitant one, the direct eye contact, the way someone might use physical space to assert presence. A simple conversation can be a miniature landscape where power dynamics determine who holds the higher ground. Then there's decision-making. This is where power often becomes very visible. Whose opinion ultimately carries the day? Who gets to set the agenda in the first place, deciding what even gets discussed and what stays off the table? Sometimes the most powerful move is the non-decision, the ability to prevent certain issues from ever being considered. We see this in families deciding on a vacation, in businesses charting their strategy, and certainly in governments shaping policy. And what about resource allocation? Now we're talking about something tangible. Who controls the money, the opportunities, the information, the time? How are these valuable resources distributed? This is often where the impact of power dynamics is most keenly felt. access to resources, or the lack thereof, can define possibilities for individuals and for entire communities. If you want to see where the power truly lies, just follow the money, follow the opportunity. Let's not forget rule setting and enforcement. Every group, from a small club to a large nation, has rules, some written, some unwritten. Who gets to make these rules? Who do these rules primarily benefit? And who is responsible for enforcing them, and how is that enforcement carried out? Are the rules applied equally to everyone, or do some seem to operate under a different set? These are all manifestations of underlying power dynamics. And perhaps one of the most subtle yet profound manifestations of power is in defining norms and values. Whose worldview, whose set of beliefs becomes the accepted common sense for the group? Whose standards of behavior are considered normal and appropriate? How are those who dissent or challenge these norms treated? This is often called cultural power, and it shapes our thinking and our actions in ways we might not even realize. We see these dynamics playing out in all sorts of social arenas. In the family, there are dynamics between parents and children, between spouses, even between siblings. The goal isn't for one person to win, but for the dynamics to be healthy enough to allow everyone to thrive and the family unit to function with love and respect. In the workplace, it's unmistakable. The relationship between a manager and an employee, the rivalries or collaborations between departments, the informal influence of certain individuals or cliques, all of these affect morale, productivity, and who gets ahead. In our communities, who are the recognized leaders? Which groups have a stronger voice in local affairs? Who has access to the resources needed to bring about change? And on a broader societal scale, in politics, in the economy, power dynamics determine who has access to political influence, who benefits most from economic structures, and whose voices are amplified in the public square. Now, I'm not one for getting into partisan squabbles, but the principles of how power is distributed and wielded, these are timeless and universal observations. To truly understand these dynamics, we also have to look at the sources of power that individuals or groups bring to the table. We've touched on these before: formal authority, a title or position, expertise and knowledge, control over resources, personal charisma and influence, access to crucial information, the ability to reward or punish, the strength of alliances and networks. It's how these various sources are brought into play, how they interact and sometimes clash, that creates the dynamic. Now, power is rarely, if ever, perfectly balanced, and when imbalances become severe or are perceived as unjust, that's when problems arise. It can lead to oppression, to exploitation, to deep-seated resentment, and eventually to conflict. Think of a seesaw that's wildly out of kilter. It's no fun for the person stuck up in the air or the one slammed down on the ground. And it's certainly not productive. Severe imbalances can stifle creativity, reduce overall potential, and lead to inefficiencies because not everyone is able to contribute their best. This is why discussions about checks and balances, about fairness and justice, are so crucial in any healthy society. So, what's the so what in all of this? What do we do with this understanding of power dynamics? Well, the first and most important step is awareness. You simply cannot navigate or hope to influence something you don't see clearly. Learn to be a keen observer of human interaction. Listen not just to what is said, but also to what is not said. Watch how people relate to each other. Read those subtle cues. This is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Next, it's important to understand your own power, your own sources of influence. Don't underestimate yourself. Everyone has some form of power, even if it's simply the power of your voice, the power of your choices, your unique skills, or your ability to build relationships and connect with others. Know thyself, the ancient philosophers said. That certainly applies here. Consider the value of building alliances and networks. There's undeniable power in numbers, in shared purpose. Collaborating with others who have similar goals can amplify your influence and help create more balanced dynamics. And of course, develop your skills. Sharpen your ability to communicate effectively, to negotiate fairly, to persuade thoughtfully. These are essential tools for navigating the complex currents of power dynamics. The goal here isn't to become a master manipulator or to win at some power game. The goal is to strive for fairness and healthier interactions. It's about using your understanding to contribute to more equitable, respectful, and productive relationships and systems. You don't have to be merely a passive victim of power dynamics. You can become a skillful participant and even a positive influence upon them. In conclusion, power dynamics are an intricate and inevitable part of our human social experience. They are the currents that shape our interactions, our organizations, and our societies. Understanding their manifestations, their sources, and their consequences allows us to navigate our world more effectively, more ethically, and with a greater chance of contributing to positive outcomes. The aim isn't to try and eliminate power. That's like trying to eliminate the weather. Instead, the aim is to foster power dynamics that are more transparent, more accountable, and more conducive to mutual respect, shared progress, and the flourishing of human potential. So I encourage you, become a student of these dynamics. Observe them in your own life, in your work, in your community. And then, with wisdom and integrity, choose how you will participate. Choose how you will use your own influence to contribute to healthier, more constructive currents. That's a challenge worthy of our best efforts.